Hello, everyone. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson University Office of Public Relations, and this is The View from the Hill, the podcast of Lindsey Wilson University. Every week during the academic year, The View from the Hill features conversations with some of the people who help create the dynamic living learning environment that serves the educational needs of every Lindsey Wilson student every day. In this eighth podcast of the 2025-2026 school year, we'll chat with the director and the two cast members of the upcoming production of Anne of Green Gables, the musical. The first fall production by the Lindsey Wilson Department of Theater will be a musical adaptation of Lucy Maud Montgomery's classic 1908 children's novel, Anne of Green Gables. It will be presented November 3rd through the 7th for area school children and November 6th and 7th for the public. Performances will be in the historic V.P. Henry Auditorium. You can read more about the production in the news section of the Lindsey Wilson website, and to get there, point your internet browser to lindsey.edu/news. Cassidy Phelps is the director of Anne of Green Gables, the musical. On this podcast, she's joined by two cast members, seniors Riley Wells, who plays the lead role of Anne Shirley, and senior Sabrina Ruiz, who plays Anne's good friend, Diana Barry. Cassidy says this play was chosen for several reasons.
So Anne of Green Gables is about a young orphan girl, and she is adopted by a pair of elderly siblings, Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert. And she goes through, when she's adopted, she just goes through this journey that many young girls do of just finding your place, making friends, just going through these different seasons of life as a young adult, as she becomes a young adult over the course of 4 or 5 years. And so she goes through making friends, she goes through grief, growing up, all sorts of different things. And so I thought it would be a good show to be doing because it's so applicable to what so many young girls and just so many young adults go through.
Riley, you've been cast in the lead role of Anne Shirley. Were you familiar with this story before you were cast in the play? And what do you think about your character, who's one of the more famous in children's literature?
Actually, yes, I did know all about Anne of Green Gables because in high school, I did a production of it with BAFTA. And unfortunately, I wasn't Anne Shirley, but I was Miss Rachel Lind, who is indeed the nosy neighbor, if anybody is familiar with the story. I connect with Anne Shirley in a way because she is so high-strung and so stubborn and so dramatic. And that pretty much encapsulates me, if anybody knows me. But I'm glad that I get the opportunity to do this role because it's going to show the kids that it is all right to be this dramatic, to be this imaginative, and to be this high-strung and independent girl and be all right with leading your own life rather than having someone guide you. And I just feel like that's very important, especially for today's youth, to realize that, whether they're second graders or up to high schoolers, because that is literally our age range for this production. So, yeah, she's pretty cool. I like her. I'm going to take good care of her, hopefully.
Sabrina, now let's turn to you. Tell us about your character, Diana Barry, who's Anne's good friend.
Yeah, so Diana is Anne's best friend, and she's a great friend. She's so supportive and loyal and loving, and she's willing to stick up for what she believes in without attacking others, and more so just in a respectful way. Anne kind of shows her that it's okay to be creative and imaginative, and she doesn't have to be ladylike and polite all the time.
Were you familiar with this story before you were cast in this role? Had you read the books or seen the movies or the TV shows?
I was not familiar with it at all, actually. But it kind of reminds me of Little House on the Prairie. It kind of gives that vibe to me. I don't know if anybody else thinks that. But no. But I have started watching Anne with an E on Netflix to get some inspiration. So yeah.
Anne of Green Gables was written and published more than 100 years ago. It's set in rural eastern Canada, yet it's still a very popular story. It's remained a classic to this day. What do you think about the story or the characters, maybe the setting, that make it so popular even here we are in the third decade of the 21st century?
I think that the age range is coming into the show, meaning like the youngest being second graders and the oldest being high schoolers, You have Anne Shirley's life, literally from when she is basically a preteen going into college. It's a journey through life, not just through girlhood. It's just life. You know, she's making decisions. It's not pretty. It's not a pretty life. You know, she's an orphan. She's coming from an asylum. She literally has lived and brought up with nothing. And she's given something that she's always wanted, which was a family. And I think that it displays the importance of having a family and the importance of friends and keeping those relationships through your life. And speaking of the rural community where this is placed, you have kids who are in a very rural state and who are coming from rural counties that haven't had that access to theater. And so I think that this gives them a spark or some sort of insights to what could be.
You're listening to the Lindsey Wilson View from the Hill podcast. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson Office of Public Relations. I'm talking to Cassidy Phelps. She's the director of the upcoming production of Anne of Green Gables, the musical. I'm also talking to two of the cast members, seniors Riley Wells, who plays Anne Shirley, as well as Sabrina Ruiz, who plays Anne's good friend, Diana Barry. A reminder that Anne of Green Gables, the musical, will be presented November the 3rd through the 7th for area school children and on November 6th and 7th for the public. All performances will be in the historic VP Henry Auditorium. Now let's get back to my conversation about Anne of Green Gables. Cassidy, talk a little bit about Lindsey Wilson's relationship with area schools. The theater program does a great job reaching out to them and exposing hundreds of area school children to live theater.
It's actually one of my absolute favorite things that we do or that any theater does because it exposes children to theater at such an early age. And not only that, but it's also bringing them to our campus, which is something that we just love being able to show them and just inviting them into what we do when we do those performances. So we reach out to school districts in about the 1 hour area range, elementary, middle, and high school, depending on the show, and offer them a performance at, I believe, just $2 per student for field trips during the school day. A lot of the time they are stories that were children's books, plays that are usually somewhat familiar to students or educators as well. We also provide study guide materials that can be offered to the educators to kind of tie that into their curriculum somehow. We all just love it. We love having the kids there, and we love just showing them what theater is.
Sabrina and Riley, you're both seniors here at Lindsey Wilson. You've both been in several productions, several of which were performed for area school children. Talk a little bit about the energy level from an audience of school children. Is that different? Is it the same as when you're performing on, say, Sunday afternoon matinee?
Oh, it is completely different. There's no comparison on how energetic they are. We did Alice in Wonderland last year, and a lot of the youths that came, it was as young as preschool up to about 5th, maybe 6th grade, around that age range. And they were so interactive, and they even wrote cards to us. And just seeing how much of an impact that we made on them just by just a snippet of a song, or just interacting with them and acting in front of them and just giving them an experience that they have never done before. Even just watching them walk into the lobby of VP, they're even amazed at that. And it just shows you how much of a wonderful privilege it is for them to come and watch these shows. Even Othello. Last year we did Othello for high schoolers and middle schoolers, and they were sucked in. You wouldn't think that high schoolers would be sucked into some Shakespeare, but man, it was like they were watching a soap opera. So I will forever say this. I have a love for theater, always have, but something about performing for young audiences, it sparks something in you that can never be beat. I don't care if they're my parents. I love my parents, but young audiences are the best audiences because they are brutally honest, and they will tell you if they enjoyed it or not, and they always do. So
Sabrina, Riley talked about Othello. You were in that play last year. In fact, your your character doesn't turn out so well in the end. What was it like performing Shakespeare as Ophelia before high school students who probably had read the play or at least had been assigned the play?
It was a crazy experience. I feel like the high schoolers were very interested, and they were just impressed on how we, were able to perform that, especially like a death on stage.
For sure.
It was something that you could tell they weren't expecting, and I could tell, like, some of the comments that they gave after, they were like, wow, that was impressive. Like, we do theater at our school, or we do, choir, but they haven't experienced a show like that, especially, a Shakespeare show. I don't know if that is as familiar to them as others. And, as Riley was talking about, performing for young audiences, it's such a blast. It is so much fun. And even with the younger kids, like, it's like you're sprinkling magic into their hands and they're like believing it, and you're just feeding into their imagination. Especially with, like, I remember for Peter Wendy, I was Tinkerbell, and the way we flew is we put our hands out to our sides and ran down the aisle, and the lights were low. And we had a kid ask us after the show, they're like, oh my gosh, but how did you guys fly? What did you guys do to fly? And I was like, are they being for real right now? And they are. They, like, believe everything. And so, performing something like this it's like giving them the opportunity and the power to tell them you're allowed to be creative, you're allowed to be imaginative. And even going into high school, I think they have a great experience with it too. And especially if they're, doing something similar in their own high school, it's like, wow, you can potentially do this as a major, or you can, go to school for this and further your education.
Sabrina, you're in your 4th year here at Lindsey Wilson. What have you enjoyed most about the theater program, or maybe what surprised you about the theater program that you didn't expect when you first became involved in theater at Lindsey Wilson as a freshman?
I think something that has impressed me and really helped me out is the fact that even though our theater community is smaller, it is mighty. And it is an advantage to go to a smaller school and have a smaller theater program, because you're given more of an opportunity to be even more hands-on in every production that you possibly can. That's something that me and our professor, Robert Brock, talk about, is when you go to a bigger school, some of those students do one show the entire year and that's it. And, at our school, we not only do a regular, spring show and like a regular fall show, a musical here, straight play there, we're performing for young audiences. And we're working on our own characters, and there's just so much more that you get to dive into with going to a smaller school, and it's more focused on your own journey as an actor and as a performer, and creating yourself as an artist in the theater world. So you just get a more of an opportunity to work on yourself and better yourself as an actor.
Riley, you literally grew up on the Lindsey Wilson campus.
I did.
You had been exposed to theater since it started more than 15 years ago. You've been involved with the program for 4 years, but what surprised you about it? What have you learned about the theater program that maybe you hadn't seen until you became one of the artists in the program?
I grew up with theater, and I did productions here and there, and I did dance. When I got here, I didn't want to focus so much on that because I thought college was a very serious thing, which it is, don't get me wrong, but I thought I had to figure out what I wanted to be as soon as I got here. I changed my major 4 times. It happens. It's going to happen. And I finally landed on theater being one of my majors. And it was the best decision I could have ever made, because I have so much life experience, not just artistic experience, but also life experience. Because we're put in a role that is basically helping us develop as a person. And the classes I have taken through theater, the life development that I have done through these experiences and through these roles that I have done, it's morphed me into a better person. And the theater here is just like Sabrina said, it's small but mighty. And I never thought in a million years that I would be playing a traditional male villain in a Shakespearean play. Never thought. I didn't really like Shakespeare, to be honest with you. But here I am now, and I have such an appreciation for it now, because he is one of the best playwrights to ever exist. It's the truth. And so I never thought that I would be performing in front of 3,000 kids. I never thought that I would be making some of the best friends of my life. It's so special because even though it is your major and it's your homework, it's also a community and it's also family. So I'm very appreciative of that because I can be myself. I don't have to be anybody else.
Cassidy, you've been involved with Lindsey Wilson Theater both as a student and now as an artistic director. What is it you think that's most special about this program?
Definitely one of the most special things that come to mind is the collaboration, that it's just kind of an understanding between us as employees and students that we're all, it's a cliche, it's a High School Musical, we're all in this together, but we really are. There's no part of this, maybe it's because we're a smaller theater, but there's no part of this that we can do by ourselves. Even if you're taking on a role as an actor, there's no part of that you can do that on your own. So it's the acting, it's deciding on production things like sets and props and things like that. There's no part of it that we can do by ourselves. And I think that speaks to our teamwork with bringing the shows together, but I think it rings true throughout the entire environment, whether it's in the rehearsal space or not. We have to lean on each other, and we just take care of each other, really, is what I think is so special about us.
That's Cassidy Phelps. She's the director of the upcoming production of Anne of Green Gables, the musical. You also heard from two of the show's cast members, seniors Riley Wells, who plays Anne Shirley, as well as Sabrina Ruiz, who plays Anne's good friend Diana Barry. Once again, Anne of Green Gables, the musical, will be presented November 3rd through the 7th for area school children, and on November 6th and 7th for the public. All performances will be in the historic VP Henry Auditorium. And you can check out more about this upcoming production of Anne of Green Gables, the musical, in the news section of the Lindsey Wilson website, lindsey.edu/news. And that's going to do it for this 8th edition of View from the Hill for the 2025-2026 school year. Be sure to encourage your family members, co-workers, friends, and neighbors to subscribe to A View from the Hill. They can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on the college's YouTube channel. View from the Hill is produced by Shelby Burton. She's Lindsey Wilson's Assistant Director of Public Relations and Media Producer. And until our next edition, I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson Office of Public Relations. Thanks so much for listening. So long, everybody, and have a nice day.